Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk in English. I'm Emma, and I'm so happy you're here.
And I'm Ryan. Thank you for joining us for another exciting episode.
Today's episode is very special because we're going to help you speak English with more confidence. If you've ever felt nervous, shy, or stuck while speaking English, then this episode is for you.
Absolutely. Many English learners understand the language but struggle to speak fluently.
So, grab your headphones, relax, take a deep breath, and listen carefully. By the end of this episode, you'll keep everything simple, natural, and easy to follow, just like two friends having a conversation. So, are you ready?
I want you to just take a second and picture a moment. Like, really try to place yourself there right now.
Yeah, just take a really slow, deep breath and visualize it with us.
Right. So you are standing in a busy coffee shop. You're holding your wallet, and you're just waiting in line.
Or maybe you are sitting in a brightly lit meeting room at work, surrounded by your colleagues.
Exactly. Or perhaps you're just staring at a webcam on a Tuesday morning video call.
Yeah.
And someone looks directly at you, and they ask you a question in English.
And you know the answer. You really do.
You do. In fact, you can literally see the English words kind of floating right there in your mind. The vocabulary is completely familiar to you.
The grammar makes total sense.
Right. It's all as clear as day in your head. But as you open your mouth to speak, everything just stops.
Yeah. The freeze?
The air just seems to leave your lungs. Your throat tightens up.
Your heart might even start to beat a little faster, right?
Oh, definitely. And those words that were so clear in your mind a second ago, they just suddenly refuse to cross the threshold of your lips.
And you find yourself frozen in this really heavy, incredibly uncomfortable silence.
Feeling that flush of heat arise in your cheeks. If you have ever felt that way, I want you to just take a slow, deep breath right now.
Please do, because you are absolutely not alone in this.
Not at all. And more importantly, that freeze response. It is not a sign that you are failing.
No, not even a little bit.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are focusing our entire conversation on you, on how we can help you gently break that silence.
It is so crucial that we start our discussion exactly there, and the reality of that physical and emotional hesitation.
Yeah, because it's a very real physical feeling.
It is, because that feeling of freezing up, that sudden blankness, it is a completely universal experience for language learners.
It brings up an enormous amount of anxiety, doesn't it?
Huge amounts. You feel like everyone is judging you, waiting for you to just say something. And we really want to create a very safe, highly supportive space for you in this audio today.
Exactly. So what you are experiencing when you freeze in that coffee shop or in that meeting is something linguists often call the passive vocabulary trap.
That's right. And to understand how to gently escape it, we have to look at how your brain actually works.
Okay, let's get into the biology a bit.
Now, you see, our brains are these wonderfully complex, highly efficient machines, and they actually store words for recognition, which is passive in a completely different neurological neighborhood than they store words for retrieval.
Wait, retrieval meaning active production, like speaking.
Exactly.
So it's not just like one big bucket of words in your head. You actually have different filing systems for understanding versus speaking.
Precisely. You have to think about the sheer neurological effort involved in each task.
Okay, walk me through it.
So when you are reading an English book or listening to someone speak, your brain is doing a pattern recognition task.
Right. The word comes in through your eyes or your ears.
Yeah, it hits your visual or auditory cortex, and your brain says, I recognize that pattern. It means schedule.
So that's a pretty low energy thing for the brain to do.
It is. It's a relatively low energy passive process. But speaking
is a whole different beast.
An entirely different beast. To speak, your brain has to actively summon the concept from your memory, select the correct English word,
which takes time,
organize the sentence structure and grammar in real time using Broca's area, and then send a highly complex sequence of electrical signals down to your motor cortex.
Oh, wow. Just to physically move your tongue and lips.
Yeah, your tongue, your lips, your jaw, your vocal cords, all to make a sound you might not have grown up making.
And it has to do all of this in what, a fraction of a second?
Exactly. It is a massive, coordinated, athletic event for your brain.
I find that so incredibly comforting, honestly. Just knowing the biology behind the freeze response removes so much of the shame.
It really should. So when you freeze, please be incredibly kind to yourself. You aren't failing.
And you certainly aren't unintelligent. You just simply have a highly developed recognition pathway and a retrieval pathway that just well, hasn't been fully trained yet.
It just needs a little bit of a workout.
Right. It means the knowledge is absolutely there inside you waiting. It just needs a stronger bridge to the outside world.
And that brings to mind something we found across several of our sources today, particularly from the language educators David and Alice.
Yes, I love their approach.
They talk about speaking not as a test of your intelligence or a measure of your worth, but simply as a muscle.
And, looking at it that way makes total sense. Like, if I read 100 books about weightlifting,
Right.
and if I memorize every anatomical chart, I might have a genius-level passive understanding of how to lift a barbell.
But if you walk into a gym...
Yeah, if I try to deadlift 200 pounds, my muscles are going to completely fail.
Exactly. Relying only on grammar books to learn how to speak is exactly like reading that weightlifting manual and expecting your biceps to magically grow.
You actually have to lift the weights. Or in this case, you have to use your physical voice.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. You cannot read your way into speaking.
Just like you can't read your way into being a concert pianist,
Yeah.
you have to physically move the muscle.
And the most liberating part of this muscle analogy is that you really do not need a conversation partner to start training.
That is such a huge relief for so many people.
It is. Many learners feel paralyzed because they think, well, I don't live in an English-speaking country and I don't have anyone to talk to, so I just can't practice.
Right. But that's a total myth.
A complete myth. You can start building this speaking muscle in the absolute safety of your own home, completely alone.
Where nobody is listening
Yeah.
and nobody is judging you.
Exactly. You can talk to yourself while you are taking a shower. You can describe the vegetables you are chopping while you are cooking dinner.
You can literally look at your coffee cup in the morning and tell it what your plans are for the day.
Yes. The goal in these private moments isn't to be grammatically flawless.
No, the goal is simply to start moving the muscle, to get your vocal cords vibrating with English sounds.
And to get comfortable hearing your own voice speaking a different language.
Because that can be really jarring at first, hearing yourself make those new sounds.
It really can be. But to really move that muscle, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
The fear.
Yes. We have to talk about the fear that is holding that muscle rigid, because the fear of embarrassment is incredibly powerful.
It is. And it creates a very painful, self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
It does. In our research into language acquisition psychology, we see this vicious cycle repeatedly. You feel a deep fear of making a mistake and looking foolish.
Right. And because you feel that fear, you naturally avoid practicing your speaking.
And because you avoid practicing, your speaking muscle physically and neurologically weakens.
Wow. And because it weakens, the next time you are forced to speak, you stumble even more.
Which only makes your fear grow larger. It is a loop that traps millions of learners.
So how do we break it?
To break that cycle, we have to fundamentally reframe how we view errors.
There is a really powerful mantra that I want you, the listener, to hold on to as we go through this deep dive today. Let it be the foundation of everything we discuss.
What is it?
The mantra is simply this: mistakes are lessons.
Mistakes are lessons. I love that.
We really have to embrace mistakes, not as public failures, not as red marks on a test, but as the literal stepping stones to fluency.
Every single time you stumble over a word, every time you use the wrong tense, your brain is actually receiving crucial feedback.
It's adapting.
It is adapting, calibrating, and growing. A mistake is just your brain gently figuring out the boundaries of the language.
So if our mission today is to break that cycle of fear and turn all that brilliant passive knowledge you have into active, confident speech, we need a plan.
We do. And we have gathered a comprehensive, highly supportive toolkit from our sources for you.
We're going to utilize audio, visual context, melody, and text. We really want to give you actionable strategies that lower your anxiety and put you back in control.
So let's dive right into the first strategy.
Okay, so if speaking is a muscle and we need to start lifting the weights, we first need to ensure we are giving that muscle the right kind of fuel.
And the most accessible, rich, and diverse fuel available to you right now is audio.
Specifically, podcasts.
Exactly. Podcasts are incredible.
But I think we need to be honest here. A lot of people, they just put on an English podcast while they're washing the dishes or driving to work, and they just let it wash over them.
Right. They do this for months, and then they wonder why they still freeze up when they try to speak.
Yeah, and that is because passive listening, well, it's lovely for getting comfortable with the sounds of a language.
It is not enough to build those retrieval pathways we talked about earlier.
Right. Just letting the audio play in the background is a great start, but it won't magically cure your speaking hesitation on its own.
To bridge that gap, the The language experts at the Love English podcast introduce a highly supportive, structured system.
They call it the three-stage rocket, right?
They do. It is designed to take you gradually, step by step, from a completely passive listener to an active, confident creator.
And the best part is it does this without ever overwhelming your nervous system.
A three-stage rocket. I really like that imagery because it implies a journey. You start on the ground, nice and safe, and you build momentum until you achieve escape velocity.
Exactly. So stage 1 of this rocket is simply passive listening.
This is the fuel gathering stage.
Right. The entire goal here is to keep the pressure as close to zero as possible. You are looking for something called comprehensible input.
That's a crucial term in language learning.
It is. It just means you should be listening to audio where you already understand about 90% or more of what is being said.
Because if you turn on a podcast about, say, quantum physics, and you only understand 20% of the words,
your brain will panic.
Exactly. Your affective filter will go up and you will learn absolutely nothing.
So in stage 1, you want content that is easy, engaging, and genuinely enjoyable for you.
You are listening purely to get the main idea of the story.
You're just letting the rhythm, the pacing, and the natural intonation of English settle into your ears without stopping to look up a single word.
Stage 1 is really all about psychological comfort. You are proving to your brain that English is not a threat.
Right. But to really ignite the learning process, we have to gradually transition to stage 2.
Which is active listening.
Right. This is where the actual workout begins.
Now, I know the word active can sometimes sound intimidating, like homework, but the techniques they suggest are incredibly manageable.
Very gentle. The first one is called the treasure hunt.
The treasure hunt. Here is how it works. You listen to a 5-minute segment of a podcast again, perhaps this time sitting down with a notebook.
Okay.
Your mission is to listen for and capture just 3 to 5 high-value phrases.
Notice you emphasize the numbers 3 to 5, right? Not 20 or 30.
Absolutely not 20. If you pause the audio every 10 seconds to write down every single word you don't know, you will quickly become exhausted.
You just get completely demoralized. You will trigger that feeling of being overwhelmed.
But hunting for just 3 little treasures, that feels like a game. That feels totally achievable.
And it's so important that we are hunting for phrases, right? Not just isolated, solitary words.
Immensely important. An isolated word is often practically useless because it lacks context.
Like if you just write down the word depends.
Right. You might not remember how to actually use it in a sentence later.
But if you capture the entire phrase, like, it depends on the weather.
You have captured a complete functional unit of language. You have captured the grammar, the vocabulary, and the context all at once.
I just love the treasure hunt. It keeps the cognitive load so incredibly low.
It does. And once you have your 3 to 5 phrases, stage 2 offers another technique called the reporter.
The reporter. Yeah. This is where you start bringing your own voice into the mix, right?
Yes. After you listen to a short segment of the podcast, you just hit pause.
Okay.
Then you gently try to summarize what you just heard out loud in your own words.
So you just imagine you were a reporter summarizing the news, or maybe just a friend telling another friend about a cool deep dive you just listened to.
Exactly. You do not need to be perfect.
No, you are just taking the thoughts that are swirling in your head and forcing them out into the air.
This tests your true comprehension because sometimes, we nod along to a podcast thinking we understand it all.
Oh, I do this all the time.
Right. But when we try to explain it out loud, we realize our understanding was actually a bit fuzzy.
The reporter technique forces clarity.
It does. It bridges that gap between receiving meaning and producing meaning.
But here is where the real transformation happens, I think. This is stage 3, creation and ownership.
This is the stage that really cures the hesitation.
Because if those 3 to 5 beautiful phrases you found on your treasure hunt just stay written down in your notebook, they don't actually belong to you.
You are simply a collector of words at that point, a curator of a very quiet museum.
I love that phrase, a quiet museum. To become a confident speaker, to become a creator, you must take ownership of those phrases.
And you do this by writing your own original sentence with the new phrase.
And it cannot be just a random sentence, right? It must connect directly to your real personal life.
Yes. And then the final challenge. You must try to use that new sentence out loud in the real world within 24 hours.
Wait, I want to unpack this idea of connecting it to your personal life because I think there is some deep psychology at play here.
There absolutely is.
Like, why does the sentence have to be about my life? Why can't I just copy the sentence the podcast host used?
Because of how human memory fundamentally works. We remember things that carry emotional weight and personal relevance.
Okay.
This is the difference between semantic memory, which is just facts and logic, and episodic memory, which is tied to your personal experiences and emotions.
So if I just copy the host's sentence,
Your brain categorizes it as abstract information that is easily forgotten.
but when you write a sentence that reflects your actual reality,
Yes. For example, taking that phrase, "it depends on the weather," and adapting it to something like, "My plan to take my kids to the park on Saturday depends on the weather."
so you are encoding that English phrase with your own personal context, your own schedule, your own kids, your own emotions.
Exactly. Your brain's hippocampus tags that phrase as highly relevant to your survival and your daily life.
And because it is tagged as relevant, the neural pathway to retrieve it becomes much stronger.
Precisely. So when Saturday rolls around and someone asks about your plans, you don't freeze.
The phrase, "it depends on the weather," is sitting right there, ready to be used, because you already built the road to it.
That is absolutely brilliant. You are essentially preloading your brain with the exact ammunition you are going to need for your actual life.
Okay, so the three-stage rocket is fantastic for taking audio and making it active.
It is.
But I know a lot of learners, especially those dealing with high anxiety, really struggle with audio-only input.
Because English pronunciation is notoriously chaotic.
Very chaotic. Words blend together, sounds completely disappear. It can feel like trying to decipher a secret code sometimes.
To make this strategy truly bulletproof, our sources point us to a secret weapon.
And honestly, it is the ultimate safety net for language learners. Transcripts.
Transcripts are incredible. The creators at Leonardo English highlight a fascinating 2013 academic study on second language listening fluency regarding this.
Yeah, this study proves, with empirical data, that listening to audio plus reading the transcript at the exact same time is vastly more effective than doing either activity alone.
And it makes complete sense when you look at the mechanics of spoken English. Transcripts remove the mystery, which inherently lowers the anxiety.
When you have the written text in front of you while the audio is playing, you are no longer just guessing in the dark.
You can actually see the phenomenon of connected speech happening in real time.
Because native speakers rarely enunciate every single word clearly. We push words together all the time.
For example, a learner might know the words going and to, but when they hear a native speaker say, "I'm gonna go to the store," they might freeze, wondering what the word gonna means.
But with the transcript, they can see the words going to on the page while simultaneously hearing the sound gonna in their ears.
They instantly connect the formal visual spelling with the messy, authentic auditory pronunciation.
It trains the ear and the eye to work in perfect harmony. It totally takes the blindfold off.
It does. And having that transcript opens the door to what I think is one of the most powerful active exercises a solitary learner can do.
It is a research-backed practice called shadowing.
Shadowing. We reviewed a pilot study by the researcher Puent Yi Win that investigated the specific effects of shadowing for English learners.
And the results are very compelling. For anyone who hasn't heard of it, shadowing is essentially the act of mimicking a speaker's exact pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation as closely as possible.
You are acting almost like a real-time echo of the audio.
Yes, and to keep it manageable and scientifically effective, the research breaks the shadowing process down into two distinct phases.
The first phase is pre-shadowing.
Right, pre-shadowing. What happens there?
In this phase, you put the transcript away. You do not look at the text at all.
Okay, no text.
You simply listen to the audio, and you gently mumble along with the sounds you hear.
So you aren't even trying to form perfect words?
No, you were just trying to mimic the melody, the rises and falls of the speaker's voice.
So by removing the visual distraction of the text, pre-shadowing forces your auditory cortex to work overtime.
Exactly. It trains your raw speech perception. You are tuning your ear to the frequency of English.
That's beautiful. And once you have done that, you move to the second phase, post-shadowing.
This is where you bring the transcript back out. You study the text.
You notice which words the speaker emphasizes, where they pause for breath, and where their pitch goes up or down.
And then you shadow the audio while reading the text.
Being intimately familiar with the text at this point lowers your cognitive load and your psychological cost, doesn't it?
Because you aren't struggling to figure out what words are being said, your anxiety naturally drops.
Allowing you to focus 100% of your mental energy on the musicality, the physical articulation, and the stress patterns of the words.
I can see how powerful that is. You are literally training the physical muscles of your mouth to move in the exact patterns of a native speaker.
But I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
And I really want to advocate for the listener who might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now.
Of course.
Because if I am sitting at home, already struggling with language anxiety, the idea of sitting down and transcribing or pre-shadowing and post-shadowing an entire 60-minute deep dive.
That sounds exhausting.
It sounds like a full-time job. How does a normal, busy person manage this without just throwing your hands up in defeat?
That is such an important reality check, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Please, listener, hear this clearly. You are absolutely not supposed to shadow or transcribe a full 60-minute audio file.
That would be a recipe for total burnout.
When you use the technique known as the scribe, where you try to write down exactly what you hear word for word to test your listening, or when you practice shadowing, you should only be working with 1 or 2 sentences at a time.
Just 1 or 2 sentences.
Maybe 30 to 45 seconds of audio maximum.
Wow. Okay, so this is a micro workout, not a marathon.
Exactly. It is about deep, careful, high-quality focus, not stressful quantity.
You are taking a tiny, manageable, incredibly safe slice of the audio, and you are exploring every inch of it deeply.
And once you have mastered that 30-second slice, you are done for the day. You have trained the muscle.
A tiny, safe slice, I think that makes it feel so much more approachable. It's not about conquering the whole mountain today. It's just about studying one interesting rock on the path.
That's a great way to look at it.
So we have built the speaking muscle using our 3-stage rocket. We are finding our phrases, and we are using transcripts to understand connected speech. We are doing our micro workouts.
But here is the real test.
Right. How do we take those phrases we learned in the safety of our bedrooms and train our brains to summon them instantly when we are face-to-face with a real human being?
Because that is when the panic hits. The pressure of another person just looking at you.
To bridge that gap, our sources point us to a highly structured methodology called the 4R activation system.
Developed by the language platform Ablino.
Yes, and it is specifically designed to take your passive knowledge and gently but firmly force it out into the real world.
The 4R system is brilliant because it provides a ladder of gradual progression. It slowly turns up the heat, allowing you to adapt to the pressure without boiling over into panic.
So let's break down those 4 R's. The first R stands for retrieve.
Retrieve. This phase is entirely about building fast, reliable recall.
In a safe, low-stakes environment, right?
Yes, perhaps by yourself, or using one of the new AI conversational partners available today, you practice answering simple questions under a very slight time pressure.
We're talking about giving yourself only 5 to 8 seconds to begin answering.
Now, I know that introducing the word pressure to someone with language anxiety sounds counterintuitive. It sounds like a bad idea.
How so? Because if you give me a 5-second timer, my heart rate immediately spikes.
It does initially, but that artificial constraint forces your brain to bypass the overthinking, perfectionist tendencies of your prefrontal cortex.
Because when you have unlimited time, you agonize over using the perfect grammar, the perfect vocabulary. You translate back and forth in your head endlessly.
A 5-second window doesn't allow for perfection. It forces you to just speak. It trains your brain that producing something is better than producing nothing.
And here's the magic of the retrieve phase. When you inevitably forget a word under that pressure, you are trained not to freeze.
Instead, you practice a vital communicative survival skill called circumlocution.
Circumlocution. It sounds like a very dense academic term, but in reality, it is the most liberating practical skill you could ever develop as a language learner.
It really is. Circumlocution simply means talking around the word you forgot. It means describing the concept.
Imagine you are in an office, and you need to bind a stack of papers together, but you suddenly realize you don't know the English word for stapler.
A hesitant learner will freeze, stare at the desk, panic, and say nothing, feeling deeply embarrassed.
But a learner who has practiced circumlocution doesn't panic. They accept that the specific word is missing, and they immediately detour.
They look at their colleague and say, could you pass me the small metal thing on your desk that you used to stick papers together?
And the colleague says, oh, the stapler. Here you go.
Yeah.
Communication is completely achieved. The problem is solved.
Native speakers do this every single day because human memory is fallible.
Learning to talk around missing words keeps the conversation flowing and completely eliminates the terror of the silent freeze.
It is the ultimate safety net. It proves to you that you don't need a perfect vocabulary to be a highly effective communicator.
Exactly. So once you are comfortable retrieving words and navigating around the missing ones, you move to the second R.
Which is rephrase.
Rephrase. This stage is about flexibility and social confidence.
It is the practice of taking a basic, purely functional sentence and shifting it into a more polite, natural, or culturally appropriate register.
For example, your basic retrieved thought might be, can we meet?
That gets the point across. But in the rephrase stage, you gently expand that thought.
You practice saying, would you mind if we rescheduled our meeting?
Yeah.
Or, I was wondering if we could find a different time to connect.
You are teaching your brain that you have options. You aren't just limited to basic survival English. You are learning how to soften your language.
How to show respect, and how to navigate the nuanced social dynamics of the language.
And once you feel socially confident with those natural phrases, we step up to the third R.
Which is reuse.
This is role play.
But I want to be clear, it is not just reciting a scripted dialogue from a textbook like a robot. That doesn't prepare you for reality.
No, in the reuse stage, you create a real-world scenario, but you purposefully inject a small, unexpected complication.
Okay, give me an example.
For instance, you practice the dialogue for ordering your favorite coffee. You have your phrases ready, but then you imagine the barista looks at you and says, "I'm so sorry, we are completely out of oat milk today."
Oh. What do? This forces your brain to pivot and adapt in real time.
You have to access different vocabulary on the fly.
Doing this in a low-stakes imaginary environment proves to your nervous system that you can handle unexpected turns in a real conversation without completely derailing and panicking.
It builds incredible cognitive resilience. You are stress testing your language skills in a safe simulator before flying the real plane.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most structurally important R in the system.
Record.
Record. This is about how you document your learning. And it is crucial that you do not trust your naked memory.
And more importantly, that you avoid the wordless trap.
Yes, the wordless trap.
Yeah.
Millions of learners keep a notebook where they just write down single, isolated vocabulary words in a long column, maybe with a translation next to it.
As we touched on earlier, this is a highly inefficient way to learn.
When you memorize a list of isolated words, they lack any grammatical context, they lack emotional resonance, and they lack practical application.
Your brain sees a list of disconnected data points and discards them almost instantly.
When you record your new vocabulary, you must write down full, complete sentences, and you must include context tags.
Let me jump in here because I think a visual comparison really helps clarify why recording full sentences is so vital for overcoming hesitation.
Well, please do.
Imagine you are trying to build a brick wall. Memorizing single words is like buying loose individual bricks and just tossing them into a disorganized pile in your backyard.
Okay, I see it.
When someone walks up to you in a conversation and asks you to build a wall, meaning construct a sentence, you have to frantically search through this massive pile for the right bricks.
Then you have to figure out how the mortar works, the grammar, and you have to try and stack them together perfectly, all while the other person is standing there watching you sweat.
It is a nightmare of cognitive load.
But learning and recording full contextual phrases, that is like buying massive pre-built sections of the wall.
The grammar is already baked in. The words are already cemented together.
When it's time to have a conversation, you aren't frantically searching for individual bricks. You just slide the pre-built wall into place instantly.
It removes almost all of the cognitive load and the panic of on-the-spot assembly.
That perfectly illustrates the neurological efficiency of phrase-based learning. You are completely bypassing the assembly process.
And within your recording phase, you should specifically focus on capturing two types of highly functional pre-built walls: connectors and repair phrases.
Connectors are words like however, therefore, as a result, or on the other hand.
Practicing these words forces a smooth, logical flow to your speech. It gives you something to say while your brain is queuing up the next thought.
Repaired phrases are even more important for anxiety, aren't they?
Absolutely. These are phrases you use when you make a mistake or lose your train of thought.
Having phrases ready like, actually what I mean is, or, let me rephrase that. Hold on, I lost my train of thought for a second. Gives you a socially acceptable built-in safety net.
Instead of freezing in silence, you confidently use a repair phrase to maintain your momentum and buy yourself a few seconds to regroup.
It shows the listener that you are still in control of the conversation. Even if you are searching for a word, It projects confidence.
It really does. So the 4R system, retrieve, rephrase, reuse, record, is an incredibly effective framework.
But let's take a step back and look at the emotional reality for a minute.
Okay.
Even with a structured system, practicing role plays and putting yourself under time pressure might still feel a little bit intimidating if your anxiety is currently running very high.
That's very true.
If you're deeply terrified of your own voice, jumping straight into time pressure drills might be too much, too soon. We have to acknowledge that.
We do. So the crucial question becomes, how do we create an environment for you to practice your pronunciation, physically move your mouth, and experience speaking English that is absolutely 100% free of stress and judgment?
The answer is something ancient, beautiful, and deeply human. We turn to music.
Music is one of the most remarkable, scientifically proven tools we have for language acquisition.
It provides a joyous, enveloping space where the pressure to perform simply vanishes.
And there is profound neurological science explaining why singing along to your favorite English song feels infinitely better and often yields better pronunciation results than reading aloud from a textbook.
Right. In the early 1980s, the influential linguist Stephen Krashen proposed something called the affective filter hypothesis.
It is a cornerstone of language acquisition theory.
Essentially, Krashen argued that negative emotions like fear, anxiety, shame, and self-doubt create a literal mental block. He called it an affective filter.
When you are in a coffee shop feeling terrified, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, detects a threat. It goes into overdrive.
And when the amygdala is highly active, it physically restricts the flow of information to your prefrontal cortex, which is where language processing happens.
The filter goes up. You literally, biologically cannot access your vocabulary. Learning and production completely stop.
Music is one of the most powerful, immediate tools we possess to lower that affective filter.
It bypasses the fear center entirely.
Exactly. The researcher Tim Murphy coined a lovely, highly evocative term for this phenomenon. He called a learner's favorite song a teddy bear in the ear.
Now, I know that phrase might sound a little childish to an adult learner, but the cognitive science behind it is profound.
A beloved song provides a sense of deep comfort, familiarity, and a completely riskless acoustic environment.
You can sing loudly in your car or quietly in your living room, and there is absolutely zero fear of judgment.
There's no one grading your grammar. The affective filter drops to zero, and the language is allowed to flow directly into your processing centers.
A teddy bear in the ear. I don't care if it sounds childish. I think it is the sweetest, most comforting image for a nervous learner.
And beyond just lowering anxiety and feeling good, there are immense measurable cognitive and acoustic benefits to the act of singing, aren't there?
Yes, because music and language aren't handled in completely separate silos in the brain. They actually share significant overlapping neural processing areas.
When you listen to a pop song, the rhythm of the music naturally highlights the syllable stress of the English words.
It acts as an auditory map, showing you exactly how words link together, where the pauses are, and how sounds are reduced or weakened in natural, rapid speech.
All hidden inside a catchy, memorable melody.
It is an incredibly efficient delivery mechanism. Because it bypasses the analytical, stressed part of the brain, the body can simply absorb the physical mechanics of the language.
We looked at a fascinating, highly rigorous study published in the journal Languages by researchers Zhang, Bales, and Prieto.
They worked with 95 Chinese adolescents who were learning English. They divided these students into two distinct groups to test this exact theory.
One group was tasked with learning English lyrics by simply speaking them rhythmically out loud, like a poem.
The other group was tasked with actually singing the exact same lyrics to the melody.
The results were striking, and they strongly support the use of music. The group that sang the lyrics vastly outperformed the speaking group in pronunciation accuracy.
Why is that? Why does the addition of pitch make such a difference?
Because the physical act of matching pitch and following a continuous melody forces the vocal apparatus, the breath, the vocal cords, the shape of the mouth, to more accurately reproduce the difficult English phonemes.
The melody acts as a physical guide rail for sentence-level intonation.
It physically prevents the learner from falling back into the staccato, choppy rhythm of their native language, forcing them to adopt the smoother, connected flow of English.
It's like the melody literally carries the correct pronunciation into your brain and out through your mouth on a little stress-free cloud.
And while you are having fun singing in your car, you are also experiencing the benefit of what educators call incidental vocabulary acquisition.
You are learning new words, idioms, and complex grammar structures organically, simply through the repetitive nature of a song's chorus.
You are absorbing the language without it ever feeling like you are sitting down to do homework.
But let me play devil's advocate for a moment here, because as much as I love using music, I look at the lyrics of modern pop songs, and a lot of it is, well, it's problematic for a learner, isn't it?
Pop lyrics are often overly poetic to the point of being confusing, or they are blatantly grammatically incorrect for the sake of a rhyme.
Or they are packed with very heavy localized slang that you would never, ever use in a formal office setting or a job interview.
Aren't we risking teaching people bad English?
That is a very common and highly valid concern. And to be clear, you absolutely should not use the lyrics of a top 40 pop song as a template for writing a formal academic essay or drafting a legal contract.
However, for a learner struggling with the hesitation to speak in social situations, this apparent drawback of music is actually a tremendous, invaluable asset.
Traditional textbooks teach a very sanitized, rigid, highly formal version of English. It is grammatically pristine, but it is often lifeless.
The reality is, native speakers simply do not speak like textbooks. We use slang. We break grammar rules. We use emotional phrasing.
Songs provide crucial cultural awareness. They expose you to authentic, colloquial, everyday English, the language as it is actually lived and breathed on the streets and in the cafes.
They teach you the common reductions, like how want to becomes wanna or got to becomes gotta.
They connect you to the living heartbeat and the emotional culture of the language in a way that rigid formal studies simply cannot.
If you want to sound natural and comfortable, you need that exposure. It breathes life into the rigid rules. It shows you the soul of the language.
So music provides us with emotional safety, a lowered effective filter, and a rich, rhythmic audio context.
But what if we need more context? If songs give us the audio environment, then movies and television shows provide the ultimate, complete visual context.
This brings us to the next crucial tool in our kit: visual context and the strategic use of subtitles.
Because if we are honest, just staring at a screen for 2 hours isn't quite enough to build that active speaking muscle.
We have to use the visual medium, and specifically the subtitles, strategically to bridge the gap between safe listening and active speaking.
Visual context is incredibly grounding, especially for a nervous, hesitant learner. When you are listening to a podcast, you only have the audio. If you miss a word, you might lose the entire thread of the conversation.
But when you are watching a television show, you have a wealth of nonverbal data. You can see the actors' faces.
You can read the micro-expressions of anger, joy, or confusion. You can observe their body language, the physical environment they are in, and the social dynamics between the characters.
Your brain has so many more contextual clues to help decipher the meaning of the spoken words, which significantly lowers the cognitive strain.
Research highlighted by the language platform Lingopie and the Sincerely Spain blog points to a very encouraging study regarding this.
This study tracked a group of ESL students and measured their language comprehension before and after watching television.
It showed a remarkable 17% improvement in overall language comprehension after the students watched just one single episode of a show with English subtitles.
A 17% boost in comprehension from 45 minutes of television is a phenomenal return on your time investment. That is highly motivating.
But we have to be very careful here, right? Because there is a massive trap hiding in this strategy. The trap of passive zombie watching.
It is so incredibly easy at the end of a long, tiring day to just sink into the couch, turn on Netflix, put the subtitles in your native language, and just let the English audio fade into meaningless background noise.
You tell yourself you are studying, but really, you are just reading a novel in your native language while English music plays in the background.
If you want this visual strategy to actually cure your hesitation to speak, you have to actively engage with the material.
You have to lean forward. You have to be willing to hit the pause button frequently.
You need to keep a notebook nearby to jot down an interesting idiom.
You need to pay close attention to how an actor physically shrugs their shoulders or rolls their eyes when they deliver a specific sarcastic phrase.
Precisely. Active, deliberate engagement is the key that unlocks the value of visual media. And the specific strategies you use should gently evolve as your linguistic confidence grows.
If you consider yourself a beginner, your primary goal is to simplify and avoid overwhelm. Don't try to understand every complex rapid-fire dialogue in a legal drama.
Look for basic sentence structures. Pause the show frequently. Take notes on how simple greetings are exchanged. Focus on the foundational building blocks.
If you are at an intermediate level, you need to challenge your brain to build cognitive resilience. Practice the art of guesswork.
When you hear an unknown word, do not immediately pause and run to Google Translate. First, look deeply at the visual context.
What is the character's emotional expression? What is happening in the scene? Try to deduce the meaning of the word based on the visual evidence.
This forces your brain to become comfortable with ambiguity, which is a crucial skill for real-world speaking.
And if you are an advanced learner, your goal is total immersion. Try to internalize the complex idioms.
Try to watch the show and process the thoughts entirely in English without translating any of it back into your native language in your head.
That progression makes total sense, but we do need to talk about the inherent danger of relying on subtitles, regardless of your level.
Because as much as subtitles are a wonderful, comforting safety blanket, we have to face realities. Subtitles do not exist in real life.
When you walk into a bakery in London or New York to order a pastry, words are not going to magically scroll across the baker's chest in a neat yellow font.
If we are trying to prepare the listener for real-world conversations, we need to discuss the importance of gradually weaning yourself off this visual crutch so you don't completely panic and freeze when those training wheels are finally taken off.
This is a very delicate transition, and it must be managed with immense self-compassion and patience.
If you rely on subtitles forever, your raw listening comprehension in unscripted, chaotic, real-world situations will undoubtedly suffer.
And if you can't understand what the person in front of you is saying, that feeds right back into your hesitation to speak.
The goal is a slow, gradual release of the safety net. A highly effective method is the repetition strategy.
You might start by watching a short 3-minute scene of a show with the subtitles turned on. You understand the plot, you learn the vocabulary.
Then you immediately rewind and watch that exact same 3-minute scene again, but this time you force yourself to turn the subtitles completely off.
Because you already know the context, the plot, and the words being spoken, your anxiety remains low.
But now your ears are forced to do the heavy lifting without the visual aid. It is a perfectly safe, controlled environment to practice unassisted listening.
I want to push back on one specific element of subtitles, because this is a debate that rages in every language learning forum, and learners are often very confused by it.
Is it better to start watching shows with the subtitles set to your native language so that you feel completely safe, you understand 100% of the plot, and you are entertained?
Or should you push through the intense discomfort, except that you will be confused, and jump straight into using English subtitles from day one?
It is a heated debate, but the cognitive science provides a clear path. What's fascinating is that both methods actually have a place, but you must transition to the target language as rapidly as your emotional state allows.
Using subtitles in your native language is wonderfully comforting for absolute beginners.
It keeps you engaged with the story, it keeps you motivated, and it exposes your ears to the general rhythm of English while ensuring you don't feel lost and frustrated.
However, transitioning to English subtitles, target language subtitles, is absolutely vital for overcoming the speaking freeze. Why?
Because of how neural pathways are formed, when you use native language subtitles, you hear an English word, you read a Spanish or French word, and your brain builds a slow, cumbersome translation detour.
When you need to speak, your brain has to walk that slow detour in reverse.
When you use English subtitles, you hear the English audio, and you simultaneously read the English text.
Your brain is forced to link the auditory signal directly to the English visual symbol, entirely bypassing your native language.
It builds a direct, high-speed neurological pathway. And that high-speed pathway is exactly what you need to summon words instantly in a real, unscripted conversation.
That makes perfect sense. You are eliminating the middleman in your brain.
So let's look at this incredible, supportive toolkit we are building for the listener.
We have practiced listening to podcasts using the 3-stage rocket and transcripts to capture real-world phrases.
We have utilized the 4R activation system to practice retrieving and rephrasing under low pressure.
We have sung along with our teddy bear in the ear songs to lower our affective filter and improve our pronunciation.
And we've used TV subtitles strategically to build visual context and wean ourselves off translation.
We are feeling good. We are feeling prepared. But I want you to imagine this scenario.
You actually step into a real conversation. Your anxiety is perfectly managed, your pronunciation is sounding great, you understand what the other person is saying.
But then, it's your turn to speak, and you simply run out of things to say. Your mind just goes completely blank.
Not because you were afraid, but because the tank is empty.
This is where we introduce our final, and perhaps most surprising, secret weapon for speaking, reading.
It seems entirely counterintuitive, doesn't it? The idea that engaging in a silent, solitary activity like reading a book, sitting alone in a quiet room, is actually the master key to speaking fluently out loud in public.
But the linguistic research, including a comprehensive study from the Progressive Academic Publishing Journal, makes a definitive, unequivocal claim. Engaging in reading outside the classroom environment is the single most significant influence on a learner's oral communication ability.
We often misdiagnose the cause of our hesitation. When you freeze up in a conversation, it isn't always because of a high affective filter or a lack of grammatical knowledge or a fear of making a mistake.
Very often, it is simply a lack of factual resources. It is a lack of ideas, a lack of formulated opinions, or a lack of vocabulary wealth regarding that specific topic of conversation.
If you have never read about global economics or modern art, or even just the intricacies of coffee roasting in English, you simply will not have the vocabulary to speak about those topics.
You cannot output what you have not inputted.
Reading silently, voluminously, fills your mental reservoir with the complex ideas, the nuanced opinions, and the sheer volume of words you need to permanently banish that terrible, hollow feeling of, I just don't know what to say.
It gives you the ammunition for the conversation. It stocks the warehouse.
But I want to challenge the traditional approach to reading because the Refold Roadmap, one of our sources, provides a very specific, highly comforting strategy for this called narrow reading.
My instinct, and I think the instinct of most eager learners, is that if I want to build a massive vocabulary so I can talk to anyone about anything, I should read as broadly as possible.
I should read a dense science article on Monday, a historical romance novel on Tuesday, a political news report on Wednesday, and a science fiction short story on Thursday. Cast a wide net.
But the concept of narrow reading says the exact opposite. It says, stay in your lane, read a single author exclusively.
Or read one specific series of books. Or focus obsessively on just one niche topic for a long period of time, like committing to reading all 7 of the thick Harry Potter books, or plowing through 50 Goosebumps novels before reading anything else.
Why are they telling us to restrict ourselves?
Because the psychology and the mathematics of narrow reading are profoundly supportive for a hesitant learner, whereas broad reading is often a recipe for exhaustion.
Consider the cognitive load of reading broadly. When you jump from a fantasy novel to a sci-fi novel to a political biography, every single new book requires your brain to learn an entirely new set of rules.
You have to learn the author's unique writing style and sentence structure. You have to learn a completely new, highly specific set of vocabulary learning words like goblin and cauldron one day, and hyperdrive and cyborg the next.
You have to learn an entirely new cast of characters and settings. It is mentally exhausting.
You are constantly starting over from scratch at the bottom of the learning curve, which destroys your momentum and often leads to quitting.
Now, consider the magic of staying in one narrow lane. Say you choose to read a 7-book series of young adult novels by the same author.
Authors, like all humans, have linguistic habits. They heavily reuse their favorite adjectives, their preferred verbs, and their unique grammatical patterns.
By the time you are halfway through the first book, you have already encountered and learned the author's core vocabulary. You know the recurring proper nouns. You understand the rhythm of their dialogue.
It's just sheer mathematical repetition.
Exactly. And because of that repetition, each subsequent book in the series actually becomes mathematically and cognitively easier to read than the last one.
By book 3, you aren't struggling to translate. You are just enjoying the story.
You are building massive, undeniable competence. And more importantly, you are building immense confidence.
You are maintaining your motivation because you're experiencing continuous, measurable success rather than struggling and fighting your way through unrelated, difficult texts.
That makes so much sense. To really lock in why narrow reading works, I think this comparison paints the perfect picture.
Imagine you are moving to a massive, sprawling, overwhelming new metropolis like Tokyo or New York City.
If you step out of your apartment on day 1 and try to explore the entire massive city all at once, you are going to get completely lost.
You are going to feel intensely anxious, overwhelmed by the noise and the scale, and you are probably going to run back to your apartment and want to stay inside forever. That is broad reading.
But narrow reading is like moving to that massive city and making a conscious choice to explore just one single neighborhood intimately first.
You walk the exact same 4 streets every single day. You get to know the person who runs the corner bodega.
You learn exactly where the safe crosswalks are. You know which coffee shop has the best seating.
Once you know every street, shop, and face in that one small neighborhood perfectly, you realize you have built a safe home base.
And more importantly, you suddenly realize you have developed the navigational skills and the internal confidence to easily and safely explore the rest of the massive city.
That is a beautiful and highly accurate way to look at it. You are establishing a secure, anxiety-free home base in the English language.
And this brings us nicely toward the conclusion of our deep dive today. We have laid out a vast, interconnected multimedia landscape for you.
We have explored the mechanics of podcasts and transcripts, the structured pressure of the 4R activation system, the emotional safety and physical benefits of singing songs, the visual clues of television, and the profound confidence-building power of narrow reading.
But having all these wonderful tools in a conceptual toolkit is completely meaningless if they remain abstract ideas. Knowing how a gym works doesn't make you strong.
We have to bring all of these strategies into a manageable, sustainable daily reality for you.
And that means we have to talk about the unglamorous but utterly essential concept of consistency, showing up.
Because consistency, above all the life hacks and strategies, is the only thing that truly permanently breaks that vicious cycle of fear we talked about at the very beginning of this hour.
From our sources, David and Alice made a vital point about the staggering power of seemingly small habits.
They suggest something that sounds almost ridiculously simple. Keeping a basic vocabulary journal and committing to writing down and owning just 3 new words or phrases a single day.
When you hear 3 words a day, it sounds almost too easy, right? Your ambitious brain says, I should be learning 50 words a day.
But let's look at the math. 3 words a day is 21 words a week.
That is roughly 90 fully contextualized, deeply understood new words and phrases a month. That is over 1,000 words a year.
Small, manageable, highly consistent habits create massive, compounding, life-changing results without ever triggering the anxiety of overwhelm.
It is about proving to yourself every single day, through small actions, that you are capable. It is about building an undeniable track record of success.
You have to show up every day, even on the days when your hesitation is exceptionally loud, when your anxiety is high, and when you feel like you are making no progress.
You have to tell yourself that even 3 minutes of engaging with English, just singing one song, or reading one paragraph, or doing one 30-second shadowing micro-workout is infinitely, exponentially better than 0 minutes.
3 minutes keeps the habit alive. 3 minutes keeps the neurological pathway open and active.
Consistency builds momentum, very much like a small snowball rolling down a long, gentle slope. At first, it is small, it moves slowly, and it takes conscious effort to push it.
But as it rolls continuously, day after day, it gathers snow, it gathers speed, it gathers mass, and eventually it becomes an unstoppable force of nature.
If you show up consistently, your English practice will cease to be a stressful chore, and it will become a natural, integrated, effortless part of who you are.
A part of who you are. I love that phrasing.
And as we wrap up our time together on this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final provocative thought.
I want you to just let this idea simmer in your mind after this audio ends and you go back to your day.
As language learners, we spend so much of our precious time and emotional energy trying to ruthlessly eliminate our hesitation, our pauses, and our accents because we desperately want to sound perfect.
We all have this intimidating image in our heads of a fast-talking, flawlessly articulate, textbook-perfect native speaker, and we judge ourselves against that impossible standard.
But I want you to consider this.
Yeah.
What if the flawless, rapid-fire, perfect English you were striving so hard for is actually incredibly boring?
What if your unique accent, which tells the story of where you came from? What if your careful, thoughtful pacing as you search for a word?
What if the beautifully unique, slightly unconventional way you construct a sentence actually makes you a more compelling, more thoughtful, and more magnetic speaker than someone who just talks a mile a minute without thinking?
Your ultimate goal in this language journey isn't to erase your history, your culture, and your identity so you can speak English like a machine.
Your goal is simply to acquire the necessary tools so you can let your true, brilliant, complex identity shine through the English language.
That is a profound and necessary reframe. Your voice, with all its nuances, is valuable precisely because it is uniquely yours.
The hesitations, the unique cadence, the careful phrasing it all tells the beautiful story of who you are and the incredible brave effort you have made to connect with other human beings in a completely new language.
That effort is something to be deeply respected and celebrated, never hidden in shame.
I want you to remember that image we started with at the very beginning of the hour. Standing frozen in the coffee shop or staring at the webcam, feeling the words trapped stubbornly behind your teeth, the silence feeling heavy, suffocating, and terrifying.
I want you to know that with these highly supportive tools we discussed today, the emotional safety of the music, the clarity of the transcripts, the low-pressure practice of the role plays, and the deep confidence of narrow reading, you have absolutely everything you need to thaw that freeze.
The next time you feel the panic rising, you don't have to surrender to it. You can take a breath, you can find a repair phrase, you can circumlocute, and you can step warmly and confidently into the conversation.
You are safe, you are highly capable, and your mistakes are simply the necessary, beautiful lessons lighting your path forward.
Trust this process. Trust in your own resilience. And please, keep using that beautiful voice of yours. We want to hear